I think there's a couple things to think about with Avery. I think there's, because he's such a dynamic athlete, you're going to get labeled as a dual threat. And so people are automatically going to say, well, can he really throw it? Can he stand in the pocket and do it? And so a lot of the unknowns are just simply that. I mean, if you go back and you watch the bowl game, there wasn't a lot behind him as far as depth chart goes. So a lot of the decisions that he made to leave the pocket or to throw it out of bounds or whatever was really, I gotta stay upright. I gotta stay healthy. And I'm going to be willing to, buy myself another play, where I think we'll get to see the more natural, we'll see the more natural player this year. One, more comfortable, but two, he's not going to be told to, when in doubt, throw it out of bounds or throw it away or whatever. I think he's going to be able to kind of showcase even more of the ability that maybe we didn't even get to see in the bowl game.
This is KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank.
Hello and welcome to the Verbal Commitment Podcast on the Kansas City Sports Network, brought to you by Home Field Apparel. I'm Kevin Flaherty, and I'm here as always with Ryan Wallace from GoPowerCat.com and 24/7 Sports to talk about the world of local recruiting, from Kansas and Kansas City prospects to the local classes at Kansas, Kansas State, and Missouri. Today, we've got a little bit of all of that. Pretty excited for our guest, quarterback trainer Justin Hoover of the Spinnet Quarterback Academy. Trained Missouri quarterback Drew Lock. Still trains Kansas State quarterback Avery Johnson. He coaches at Elite 11, so he had a chance to see Missouri quarterback commitment, who we've had on the show, Matt Zollers, in person. And he's worked with the 2026 quarterback who earned a Kansas offer this summer. So kind of talking about everybody. He should also have some local high school quarterbacks to watch both for this season and the future. So that should be a fun interview. As always, if you like what you're hearing, subscribe, hit that like button, or leave us a 5-star review wherever you get your podcasts, like Apple or Spotify. Ryan, you're coming off a vacation. You're looking very relaxed, very zen. How are you doing tonight?
Yeah, we're back. We're back from the Rockies. Went out there for my father-in-law's 70th birthday. He checked off a bucket list item, Kevin. It was paragliding.
Oh, wow.
So that was fun. We were up in Boulder in Deion Sanders' part of the country. And then cool little story that I'll touch on here very fast. On the way back, obviously all my family, K-Staters, right, through my extended relatives. And so Kevin, you're like me. We don't like to pull a lot of strings, but, every now and then, if you've got something like that, you might as well. And how often are you going to drive through caravan through Goodland, Kansas, with a pack of K-Staters that would be excited to meet a certain 5-star commit? So texted Lincoln Cure last minute, and it was really cool. He came and met us outside of Goodland High School, all the family. You see my son there, got his cast signed. Kevin, he has not let anybody sign the cast.
Okay.
Before Lincoln would let his aunt sign it, none of his friends at school. Lincoln shows up, and suddenly he wants his cast signed, gets the autograph there. So anyway, just a really cool kind of exclamation mark on our way back home from the trip, and also really cool recruits out there. Think about priorities here. If a 5-star commitment can make some time on a Wednesday to come down and sign a couple autographs, the least you can do for us media members is maybe return a text or a DM, right? Anyway, but really cool. Thanks to Lincoln for doing that. Made a special moment.
Great kid, great family. I think K-Staters are really going to enjoy getting to know Lincoln Cure over the next few years, both on and off the field. Last episode, we talked to Kansas State safety commitment, Logan Bartley. And I want to do just kind of a real quick swing around a couple of the local schools with some recruiting updates. Missouri lost a pretty big-time recruit in Javon Boggs, who flipped to UCF. Boggs was a 4-star recruit in the 24/7 Sports Composite. We talked about him. He was a real big, run-after-catch guy. I think was his main strength. UCF's recruited at a pretty high level of late. You expected that recruiting, obviously, to bump up with joining the Big 12. But while that was a big gift for the Knights, Missouri not exactly hurting for choices at the wide receiver spot. And Kansas added to its class with Chris Mccorkel, a cornerback from Cardinal Mooney in Florida, who's a former Indiana commitment, had some Big Ten offers, and he becomes the top-ranked prospect in Kansas's class now, according to 24/7 Sports. Ryan, what did you think of that get for the Jayhawks?
Well, first off, I just wanted to go back to Missouri real quick. That was an interesting one with Boggs because he's kind of making a trend of this, Kevin. He was an Ohio State commit that flips to Missouri and a Missouri commit that now flips to UCF. And in our episode where we broke down the Tigers commitment class, I remember you and I talking, saying, hey, if UCF offers a wide receiver out of Florida, that says a lot about the talent of this individual. So we thought it was a really good gift for the Tigers, but it also makes sense that he might go back to UCF. Corey Sims, maybe a possible flip there in Flipmas season here, the USC commit from CBC in St. Louis. I know Missouri'd love to get after him. And DJ Miller from Cardinal Ritter. I know there's some other SEC schools that are kind of his favorites at the moment, but maybe that was because Missouri hadn't prioritized him. Maybe things change now. On to Chris Mccorkel, though, Kevin, because I flipped the tape on. I really like this kid. You mentioned it. Cardinal Mooney High School in Florida, 6'1", 175, former top 247 player. He's still a top 50 cornerback by 247 composite and top 50 player in the Sunshine State. So getting him out of Indiana, getting him away from another finalist like Michigan State. But, Kevin, he had offers from Florida, Florida State. UCF was in there. I always like, you and I are big on kind of who else offers in terms of maybe the out-of-state schools. And I know you're going to agree with me on this one. When you see Iowa offering a cornerback, right, out of state, when you see Brett Bielema in Illinois offering somebody in Florida on the defensive side of the ball, you kind of go, okay, there might be something here with this kid. And love the hand quickness and the overall hand-eye coordination, Kevin. But, I mean, his arms were like a fly swatter in some of the clips, right? Because it's like, the timing there, the closing speed is there too. But usually when you have a guy that's 6'1", 6'2", sometimes those arms take a while, to get where they want. He's very quick in his burst to kind of get in there and make contact with the ball. Obviously, Florida speed kills, and loved the body control that I saw from him too, Kevin, as both a receiver and a cornerback. So a lot to like if you're a Kansas fan with again, we talked about it last episode, with kind of a commitment at a time period that you don't expect a commitment. That's always a plus for Lance Leipold.
Yeah, it kind of came out of nowhere a little bit, at least in terms of timing. And Kansas has done a pretty good job over the last couple classes of stacking these 6-foot-plus corners with ball skills. And McCorkle, that's one of the things that stands out, the ball skills. Like you mentioned, he plays wide receiver on offense. He averaged better than 23 yards a catch, had 4 interceptions, one of which was maybe the most fun clip on his huddle was a one-handed snag that he was able to bring down. Another local guy who does not go to a local school kind of made headlines this week in Jaden Roberts at Alabama. He's an offensive lineman there. Played at St. Thomas Aquinas, and then before heading south and transferring to Houston area powerhouse, North Shore. Everybody looks forward to Bruce Feldman's Freaks List every year because you get to see these are the kinds of athletes that are playing college football. A lot of these guys are destined for the NFL. And Jaden Roberts didn't just make the list, Ryan. He came in at number 4, and he started last year as a sophomore for a team that reached the college football playoff. You got to see Jaden Roberts really early. And so I'm sure that his spot on the Freaks List, not exactly shocking you.
No, not at all. I mean, people like to talk about like a guy like Trent Williams having the nickname of like the silverback, right? And like Jaden Roberts to me is Trent Williams, probably not as athletic, and just overall agile quickness. But just a freak. Shows up at, I believe it was the A-10 varsity combine going into maybe his freshman year or sophomore year. And we knew about big brother, smaller in stature, Matthew Roberts. And yet here comes Jaden, and nobody had ever seen this kid. And even at that point, Kevin, we're talking about a kid that was 6'6", 310. Yeah. And ends up winning the King of the Hill there against a couple guys that ended up going and playing Power 5 football on the defensive line. So he none of that surprised me. Later on, like later that summer, a couple months later, I ended up going to film Nate Matlack at Top Speed with Joseph Potts. And he had actually just picked the Roberts brothers up as clients. And this might have been the first week that they were there. And I remember Potts looking at me and he goes, I think Jaden's going to break the sled record, which at that point was like 1,300 pounds. So you're pushing this sled across like field turf. And I remember they would stack just enormous amounts of weight and sometimes have to have human beings also on the sled for Jaden Roberts. So he ended up setting the record, which has since been broken. I confirmed. Dalton Reisner, I think Cooper Lovelace ended up getting up to 1,400. Coach Potts was telling me, but I mean, not a surprise. Kevin, you see certain guys when you're out kind of watching as much high school football as we have over the years. Very few guys would you and I probably say we knew from the minute we saw them play, that's an NFL guy. Jaden Roberts has to be on that list.
Yeah, I think, you and I were talking before the show. I think he's probably the best offensive line prospect I've seen in Kansas under Braden Smith. I thought Braden Smith was so freaky, and linemen now are built very differently than they were when I played very poorly at Shawnee Mission Northwest. Back then, offensive line, they looked more like bouncers, right? They were just kind of big, brawny guys. Braden Smith had like a V cut. He did not, look like a guy that had as much weight as he did. By the way, if you want, he did set the record at Top Speed, like you said, that was broken. He set it as a 16-year-old,
right? Where
he wound up transferring down to Houston. If you're wondering why he made the freaks list, weighed in at 322, 18% body fat at 322, bench press 325. Or 325, 525, excuse me. I was nowhere close. Interest 525, power clean 405, both of which are really freaky measurements. But then Ryan squatted 825.
825 pounds. I mean, and it now you see why, when you think about that Aquinus team, tying it back locally here, why I remember going for the year that he played mainly main varsity. I mean, freshman year he was there, but when things really took off for him sophomore year, Randy Dreiling was running Tank Young behind the right side every single time. You could load that side of the line and that side of the box of scrimmage, and it didn't matter. Jaden Roberts was at right guard, and I think Joe Michalski, who's the center now at Oklahoma State, started last year, will start again this year, was the right tackle out there, and they were just unstoppable. And Tank Young was piling up yards. And obviously, when you talk about the Roberts brothers, Kevin, it's a sore subject for some K-State fans out there. Matthew Roberts was a guy that was dying to get an offer from Kansas State. Bill Snyder's staff never really would pull the trigger. I think didn't know what position he truly fit for. Didn't test well enough as a linebacker, a little shorter for defensive end. But there's a legendary video still floating around on Twitter somewhere of Matthew Roberts as a junior at Aquinas, standing post game next to his brother Jaden. I'm hitting record and asking him what an offer to Kansas State might do, and Matthew Roberts had a big grin on his face and said something like, well, I don't know, I'd love to see it happen. And pan over to Jaden, and he just says, package deal. So that was one that you might have been better off rolling the dice. But even still, Kevin, I don't know if K-State would have gotten Jaden, because he went down to North Shore and got everybody's attention across the country.
Could you have imagined, though, Cooper Beebe on one side and Jaden Roberts on the other? I mean, that's scary to think about. We will talk to locally based quarterback trainer Justin Hoover in just a minute. But first, let's talk. One of the best things about recruiting in high school football is the discussion that comes around it and the community that can be built through that. And so if you have any questions or comments, if you want to tell Nick he is awful at College Football 25, even though he told from Heisman, text it over to the KCSN Mint mobile hotline. We'll read those comments. We may just talk about them on the show, and it's a text message. What do you have to lose? So shoot us a message over at 913-407-6524, and let's talk. We also want to tell you about our friends over at Home Field Apparel. Kickoff is almost here, and Home Field can get you geared up during Can't Miss Kickoff 2024, a month-long event that can get you outfitted with gear for your favorite school. Try out the football box, where you get 3 never-before-seen items exclusive to your school. From a Kansas standpoint, you have 2 short-sleeve shirts, a long-sleeve shirt, and even a hoodie to help you stay warm during those Midwest Novembers. And Ryan, I know you really like the 3 K-State shirts.
Yeah.
Trucker hat in addition that was pretty good looking. So go ahead, take a look at that. That box looks like it's going to be the real deal for this fall, and you're going to get a lot of comments on those items if you wear them out to games. So head over to homefieldapparel.com. Use the promo code linked below in the description, and you can get 15% off your first order. We will be right back.
We appreciate you supporting KC Sports Network by listening to our podcast. You have helped us become the highest-ranked Chiefs podcast network in 2022 and 2023. And don't forget about our daily Substack newsletter, the best written analysis you can find on the Chiefs straight to your inbox every day. kcsn.substack.com.
With big cell phone providers, what you see is never what you get. Somewhere between the store and your first month's bill, the price you thought you were going to pay magically skyrockets. But with Mint Mobile, you'll never have to worry about gotchas ever again. When Mint Mobile says $15 a month when you purchase a 3-month plan, they mean it. So you can say bye-bye to overpriced wireless plans, jaw-dropping monthly bills, and unexpected overages. Mint Mobile is here to rescue you with premium wireless plans starting at just $15 a month. And better yet, all plans come with high-speed data and unlimited talk and text delivered on the nation's largest 5G network. And if you're worried about keeping your own phone and your phone number, with Mint Mobile, you can keep your phone and your phone number and all of your existing contacts. So ditch overpriced wireless to the Mint Mobile's deal and get 3 months of premium wireless service for just $15 a month. To get this new customer offer and your new 3-month premium wireless plan for just $15 a month, go to mintmobile.com/KCSNVC. That's mintmobile.com/KCSNVC. Cut your wireless bill to just $15 a month at mintmobile.com/KCSNVC. $45 upfront payment required, equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes on unlimited plan. Additional taxes, fees, and restrictions apply. See Mint Mobile for details.
We're back with the Verbal Commitment podcast sponsored by Home Field Apparel. And now we are joined by Kansas City area quarterback trainer Justin Hoover of the Spin It Quarterback Academy. Let's put it this way. There's a pretty good chance he's your favorite local quarterback coach. Coach, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, Ryan, Kevin, thanks. I appreciate you having me on for sure.
So for those who are kind of unfamiliar with being a quarterback trainer, one of your guys is Drew Lock in the NFL. What was that process kind of like, working with him from high school level on through college and now into the league?
Yeah, I think he was kind of one of those kids that probably believed in me before there was much of a reputation. And, I think we just finished our 14th offseason together, which is crazy. And so anytime, that is not necessarily why I got into the business. When we've always said that the model is we want to help players improve their high school experience, make high school football a little bit more fun for them, let them have a little bit more success potentially. And but then you get guys that, that do have an opportunity to go play on Saturdays and a couple of guys now that have got a chance to play on Sundays. So to see a kid go from a 15-year-old kid or 14-year-old kid whose parents have to drop him off at a workout to, now visiting him at his beach house in the off season, it's just wild to see him grow and to be a part of their journey that long and that far through their career has been really special.
Coach, one of the things that college coaches, there's kind of a gap there because they're trying to teach players the system and whatever when they get on campus, where to go with the football. They don't really get a chance to work with players on their mechanics as much, and that's a gap that you're really able to fill. And it seems like with NIL, that creates kind of an interesting opportunity there. How has your life changed now that quarterbacks are getting NIL and you've got collectives and all those different things?
Well, I think it automatically starts the conversation of, when they're out on the road recruiting or it's spring break or it's summertime or whatever, and they can get to you for a day or you can get to them for a day. Obviously the high level guys have the ability to, kind of find that consultant or that quarterback guy that can come in and help them. So I do think that it's been, it's something that you really try to make sure that you manage relationships with coaches too, to where you don't feel like you're stepping on toes if you're helping somebody during the off season, maybe preparing for spring ball or something like that. But, you also, I think a couple things. One, it's available and accessible now because the athletes have it. But then secondly, I think there's still a relationship that you have to nurture with the coaches to make sure that they're comfortable with it too.
Sure. Coach, you mentioned, or we talked about earlier, that you're kind of the local quarterback guru, but I think it's also cool for this show that you've touched every single campus. We mentioned Drew Lock, obviously, with KU, Montel Cozart, and Ryan Willis going back to your Miege days, and obviously at Kansas State, Skylar Thompson, and the one that will start there this fall, Avery Johnson. Kevin and I actually did a video with you and Avery, I think going into Avery's junior year that offseason, before he was what he has become now. You mentioned in that video a lot that there were a lot of intangible things, right, with Avery that matched up with some of the best guys you've been around. And one of the things you mentioned was how he can hear it once and kind of see it once, and then he goes with it. Do you feel like that's still kind of one of Avery's strongest traits as a quarterback, is just being able to be a quick learner?
Yeah, I think most definitely a quick learner. That's still a trait that I think even at the college level, as things have gotten more complex, that he's been able to keep up with. You just don't have too many things that come up that he's going to make a mistake. He's going to make a mistake mentally 2 times in a row. He might make a physical mistake, but from a mental standpoint, he's pretty locked in. He's pretty aware of the things around him. And from a learning standpoint, he picks up on things really fast. It helps that you have a little extra from an athletic standpoint to where you can make a thing look like you really understood it even when you didn't, but yeah, he's special that way. He picks up on things fast and can really execute at a high level. And I'm fired up for the fall for sure.
Another thing that I wanted to ask you, Coach, about Avery, and you're the one that would know, right, is the biggest thing right now that everybody's talking about with Avery is, okay, we know he runs 22 miles an hour. We know he's this dual threat guy, but what is he and what can he be as a passer? From your experiences working with him, from the day he showed up, at your doorstep, to the times you've worked with him in the offseason, to kind of where you've seen him go in games and things like that in the fall and moving towards this fall, kind of how far has he already progressed? And is that's still kind of an area that national pundits should be concerned about?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple things to think about with Avery. I think there's, because he's such a dynamic athlete, you're going to get labeled as a dual threat. And so people are automatically going to say, well, can he really throw it? Can he stand in the pocket and do it? And so a lot of the unknowns are just simply that. I mean, if you go back and you watch the bowl game, there wasn't a lot behind him as far as depth chart goes. So a lot of the decisions that he made to leave the pocket or to throw it out of bounds or whatever was really, I gotta stay upright. I gotta stay healthy. And I'm going to be willing to, buy myself another play, where I think we'll get to see the more natural, we'll see the more natural player this year. One, more comfortable, but two, he's not going to be told to, when in doubt, throw it out of bounds or throw it away or whatever. I think he's going to be able to kind of showcase even more of the ability that maybe we didn't even get to see in the bowl game.
Coach, one of the things that we had kind of talked about a little bit at Mill Valley 7-on-7 was an added element that not a lot of people are talking about in terms of biometrics and some of the data that comes in and stuff that college coaches can work with, but also you as a trainer can work with. And with Avery, you talked about maybe some flexibility or mobility type things that you guys were able to work on it and help him improve because of that data.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting when you can combine. This is just a credit to Coach Kleiman and how connected he is to the whole thing. It starts there. He's got to be willing to have somebody come in and do that and collect that data from the quarterbacks or whatever position it may be. And then the quarterback coach or offensive coordinator, and then the strength staff, and then further down the chain becomes me. And then you can put all of us together and say, okay, this is what we found out. This is what we need to emphasize. And when we attack it from a bunch of different angles, you have an opportunity to see a faster result. And so anything that he might have been struggling with, when everybody says, okay, when he comes in the weight room, he's going to work on X, Y, and Z because we know that's a deficiency. And then I know that it exists. Then we can handle some things in the way that we adjust mechanically or whatever. Man, it just makes so much sense to combine a bunch of people that all have the same interest in mind with all of this data. Why would we hide it from anybody that's directly involved with the player? And K-State and Coach Kleiman have been great about that. And so we've seen some improvements for sure. And it's really interesting to now have two data points, two different collections of data to be able to say, okay, all the things that we have identified that you need to work on, he's improved on, and he'll just continue to do that.
Coach, that stuff that you were really zoned in on when Avery first arrived to work with you, do you find, are those still kind of the same things that you're still trying to progress and develop even further when you're working with him here most recently, or have things evolved and you're fine-tuning other areas of his game?
Yeah, he's evolved for sure, but I still think that, I kind of use the basketball analogy. We're going to shoot layups and make free throws, and then we'll start working on the, turnaround jumper and the Steph Curry three. I mean, at the end of the day, you got to complete stick on 3rd and 5, and so fundamentally, nothing's really changed. I mean, the process is exactly the same. Let's get really good at this. And then we'll let some of the creativity and some of the athleticism that he has, we'll develop it and make it an even bigger strength for him. But for the most part, I think fundamentally you just got to get dialed in, and that's what he's been able to do. And, from a mechanical standpoint, there's definitely been improvement that way.
Hey, Coach, real quick, and Kevin, I know you'll be interested in this too. You just before I lose my train of thought here, has there been a certain quarterback that you've ever worked with that the time between teaching layup to turnaround jumper was pretty brief? I mean, was there anybody pretty special that you could kind of hit the accelerator on?
Yeah, I mean, there's probably a handful of guys that I feel like probably not anybody any faster than Avery. I would say Daniel Kalen, the freshman quarterback at Nebraska, was that way. Had been coached with other, he'd had other great coaching from other guys. And so his background was really solid and foundation was really solid. So when you get a guy with that, you see 10 throws from him and you're like, I don't even know why you're here, then you get to dig into the 1%. And that's the part that becomes really exciting. Avery was a little bit like that because he was such a fast learner. And then I think of Graham Mertz that way. The difference was Graham and I just worked together for so long. I mean, I think Graham started with us when in between his 6th and 7th grade season, and so we got him at such an early age. But man, when we figured out that it was like unique and different than the normal 6th, 7th, 8th grader, then you start going, okay, let's push this. Let's let him throw with the older guys. Let's let him be around some more talented guys and see if we can push him a little bit.
I still think as KU camp performances go, watching Graham Mertz and Clayton Tune, kind of go back and forth, was one of the better quarterback showdowns, I guess you would say, that I've seen. I think Mertz was a year younger than Tune was from an eligibility standpoint, but he was good at Wisconsin. But this past year, I mean, he set career highs all over the place. He completed 73% of his passes, only threw 3 interceptions, set career highs in passing yards and touchdowns. Where was the leap for him this year, or was it a leap? I mean, was it a jump that you saw, or was it something where it's just like, hey, the opportunity is there, or what did you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think there was a jump. I think there was a jump mentally. I think it was a reset button that kind of gave him a chance to take a deep breath. I think he went in with such high expectations at Wisconsin that it was almost set up for failure. The first night out there, he throws 5 touchdowns in his debut, and everybody's like, okay, we're going to win a Heisman with him and, maybe win a national championship. And I don't know that offense was ever really built for a guy that throws it that way. So when he did decide to leave, and he had some time at home, he had some great coaching at Florida. Ryan O'Hara, Billy Napier both do such a great job with the quarterbacks that I think it kind of refreshed him. It allowed him to fall back in love with the game, and so it was more of a mental check, I think, or reset that probably helped him put out a better product on the field. I also think that offense just looks like more of what Graham's comfortable in. And so we got to see probably the true Graham. Sometimes when you're in a position to where you're going to throw it 18 times a game, that 3rd and 6th throw, you kind of aim and try to hand it off almost. And when you know that you're going to throw it 30 times a game, your mentality goes, I can waste one here, I can force one here, I can do this. And so I think that changes your mental approach to the way you're playing as well.
He's such a mature kid, and with Florida having DJ Lagway coming in that they want to, kind of get a package for, do you think Graham's better equipped to handle that situation than a lot of people are? Because some people, it disrupts the rhythm or whatever, but Graham seems like the type of kid that would be able to handle that and still excel.
Yeah, I think there's a couple things. I think he's mature enough to recognize, I think he also wants to kind of mentor this guy,
Sure.
And he's not intimidated by that part of it. In fact, I think it fires him up as a competitor. And so he's done such a great job from a leadership standpoint that if you ask that locker room, I don't think there's any doubt who their guy is. And I think that there is probably something that they're going to try to do with DJ, whether it be, something in the red zone, or they're going to do the old Gary Pinkel way and give him the first series of the second quarter, or whatever that looks like. And I can promise you the great thing about Graham is if that's the case, when DJ scores a touchdown, Graham will be the first one out on the field to celebrate with him, and I think that says a lot about the type of player he is, but the teammate that he is. And that's why I think he's got a bright future, not just at Florida, but, down the road in the NFL.
Coach, I'm going to put the pressure on you here for a minute, and I will take Graham out. You cannot pick Graham from this list. You're a humble guy, but I want our viewers to understand, for, again, a Kansas City-based show, hopefully most of our listeners know what the Simone Award is, right? It's given annually to the top overall player in the Kansas City Metro. You've had your hand on 6 of the last 10, all quarterbacks, obviously. Between Dylan Dunn at Blue Valley Southwest, Mikey Pauley, now at KU, Blue Valley Northwest, Conrad Hawley, who's gone the basketball route now, right, at Ohio State. Again, we'll remove Graham at Blue Valley North, Skylar Thompson at Fort Osage, and Drew Locke at Lee Summit. Was there one of those guys that you just feel most proud in terms of their progression from where they started with you to where they kind of finished their high school careers?
Man, that's tough. And I always hate the idea of compare these guys, this guy to this guy, or how much do you love this one versus the other? But what I will say is I don't know who had the more special season that allowed them to win the Simone or the most impressive. But if you look at Mikey Pauley, he started early in his career, and I'll get the numbers wrong, but the idea will be right. I think they were 0-9 his freshman year. I think they were 2-7 his sophomore year, and then they were 5-5 or 6-4, and then they rattle off the state championship. And I think that's all while playing 3 sports at a 6A school. And so to me, that one was impressive. Mikey was also the guy that was like, all right, we play basketball on Tuesday, Friday. really the only time that I have to train is Wednesday night at 9:00 or Thursday morning before school or whatever. And we did it, I told him, I was like, you want to commit to this? Don't show up late. I won't show up late. We'll do this thing together. He just did it. He just attacked it. And he was like, I don't know if I have time or not, but I'm going to make some time. And so that's why I think that one is the one that sticks out to me the most, is just how committed to the deal that he was.
You talked a little bit about the Pinkel timeshare earlier, going with a more modern Missouri quarterback. For those who don't know, you coach at Elite 11 and had a chance to see Matt Zollers. I understand he was very impressive out there. What stands out about that kid? Why is he such a highly regarded guy at this point?
I think he's got elite arm talent. There's no doubt about whether or not he can make that throw. We use arm talent in so many different, like we just throw it around like everybody's got it. But the thing that he does so well is like he has different pitches. That's kind of how I compare it to, like I thought when I watched him, I was like, okay, he's going to throw a fastball 99% of the time, and then getting to be around him, I recognized his ability to put some tempo on it and, change the trajectory and the flight so naturally, whether he was on platform or had to move around. It just comes off his hand really clean, really smooth. He's a really confident, really smart kid. And so there's no surprise to me after spending a few days with him this summer why not only is Missouri so excited about him, but why the country recognizes him as one of the top guys in America.
The guy that kind of popped early on recruiting radars, but just earned a local offer this summer is Jaylen Mason with Shaw Northwest. You're very familiar with his game. You've worked with him. Where can Jaylen take a step forward, and what makes him, a power four, I guess, now at this point, a power four quarterback?
I think it's command. I mean, I think the athleticism's there. I think that the arm strength is there now that he's kind of grown into it and all that kind of stuff. I think it's about like, let's show some stuff where, the guy's lined up on the line when he's supposed to be off, and this lineman doesn't know what his assignment is. I think it's overall command, and those will be things that I think that will be separators for him. The learning curve is over. You got to go now, and so you can't use the excuse of being a young guy when you make a mistake. You got to have some ownership with it, and so I'm excited to see that part of it, the way the body language reacts to good and bad, and he's ready for that, and so. I think that's a big thing for him because the skill set and the talent's there, no doubt.
Yeah, he's in 2026, so having that command at that age is pretty impressive. I know you work with another 2026 in Rocko Maria over at Platte County. What has he shown to this point? He's already got, some FBS offers, but it seems like he's a guy that as people see him this fall, he could really take off.
Yeah, I mean, I think Rocco's interesting he's got all of it from a physical makeup. I mean, you look at him, he's, 6'2.5", 210, as a incoming, as a rising junior, runs, 4.5 and jumps 35 and all that kind of stuff. And also plays high level baseball. And, Elite 11, we do testing, kind of combine style, and he was the second highest rated Spark athlete in the entire country. The only guy that beat him all year long was Deuce Knight, the Notre Dame commit. So from an athleticism, there's like no doubt he can do it. I think in the past he would be a guy, because recruiting's different now than it was. If this was 2019, he would have double digit offers right now. So I think as the fall gets going, give him an opportunity to put some really good tape out there. And I don't think he'll have to change his cell phone number because people are going to be all over him.
Yeah. A couple of group of 5 commits, one to the east and one to the west of Rocco. Banks Bowen at Lawrence, committed to Tulsa. Brady Davidson at Columbia Rockbridge, committed to Northern Illinois. What do you like about those guys? And how have they grown? Because it feels like both of those guys maybe have taken a jump over the last year as well.
Yeah, I mean, definitely from an improvement. Both of those guys have had as good off seasons and jumps as anybody that we've had a chance to work with. Banks is interesting because obviously has grown up in a coach's house, and so he knows this is football, and so he's been exposed to really high level players and probably had more access to things than others, but he really didn't have didn't really have a lot of training at quarterback, and so when we got a chance to start working with him before his junior year, that was one of the things that Coach Bowen wanted to really just give him a chance to think differently and approach the position differently, because he's also a really good athlete. So then you look at it and you're like, I think if they play him at safety, he's going to have offers. He's going to have Power 4 offers at safety, and so I think he'll play himself into potentially more Power 4 offers at quarterback as well, just because he's getting so comfortable spinning the football. And to me, he's the type of kid that when this is your job and you have time to commit to it 365 and you just give him a little bit more time, man, he's going to be able to just absolutely rip it. And he's got all the kind of intangibles that come with being a coach's kid, And then Brady split time early in the year last year at Rockbridge as a junior with a guy that's going to Harvard. So it wasn't like he was playing behind somebody that, wasn't good. Sam Kaiser's a really, really good player.
Yeah.
And so if you just go off of, and unfortunately, I think sometimes college coaches have so many guys that they have to pay attention to and have to watch, that if you look at the stats or things like that, it might be a little underwhelming when you look at Brady's lines. But to be honest with you, he's one of those guys too. I kind of said it about Rocko. I'm like, man, I have no idea how you don't have double-digit offers. I think he's really special throwing the football. He's another one of those 3-sport athletes that when it becomes your job and you are a football player 365 at the University of right now Northern Illinois, like the sky's the limit.
Yeah. You gave us a couple sleepers to watch as well, guys that you're looking forward to watching during the high school season this year. You said Braven Powell at Gardner Edgerton and Marco Rodriguez over at Bishop Miege. Both of those guys, I mean, they were really good last year, but you think there's another level that they can hit.
Yeah, and I think the thing that a lot of times coming into your senior year after you were the starter as a junior, those were kind of two guys that I wanted to highlight because they both won. They both won a lot. They both played really high level competition and both excelled. Both of them had kind of starting with Braven. Braven obviously wins the state championship, and then what people don't probably know is that he played injured and then had to have a wrist surgery, and so that kind of slowed him down headed into the off season. And so I think that's kind of kept him under the radar a little bit because he didn't get to camp as much as he wanted. He didn't get to kind of work on his craft as much as he wanted in the off season. And then Marco, I think Marco's biggest deal, the expectations are always really high at Bishop Miege, and there's been a pipeline of quarterbacks that, you try not to compare yourself to, but it's kind of impossible not to. And so for him, I think it's kind of letting himself kind of grow into himself and just be comfortable with who he is. He recognized, like, I need to kind of pull the trigger. When it's time to throw it, I need to throw it on time. I got to trust it. I got to take a little better care of the football. I think he felt like he got a little reckless with it at times. So that's just been a big priority for him in the offseason. So I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do in the fall based off of some of the things that he identified as a player. I can remember sitting with him in the offseason and kind of giving us a checklist of things that he wanted to handle, and he's handled them at a high level all summer, all offseason.
Coach, I wanted to finish kind of with two higher level kind of coach questions from your expertise at the quarterback position. And I figure we've got either some parents or quarterbacks listening or maybe even some future quarterbacks tuning in here. Is there an NFL quarterback, maybe a college quarterback out there right now that you just feel like, everybody wants to be Patrick Mahomes, but there's only really one guy that can do a lot of the things that he does? Maybe he is the answer here, but is there one quarterback that you feel like kids out there should be kind of watching in terms of how they want to emulate footwork? And if you had a model quarterback out there, is there a guy in the league right now that you would point to and say there's a lot of things you can learn from this guy?
Yeah, that's a tough question. I will say to the Mahomes part of it, be careful, because you're right. There's only one, and we kind of, I see it more and more. I think the RPO world has allowed the quarterback to play a little more freestyle, anyways. But it kind of goes back to the earlier part of the conversation. Is like, you got to make layups and free throws, and then you'll have the chance to make the big splash play. And I think that's what people don't appreciate as much about Mahomes as we should, is how good he is from the pocket, on time, with anticipation, accuracy, all of that. He has it all. He just has the extra stuff that he gets to do too. And it looks so cool and it gets so many clicks and we all watch it over and over again. But the boring stuff is what moves the sticks. And he can do the boring stuff as well as anybody in the league. Somebody outside of him, I think I'll be really interested to see. He just got paid, so he probably needs to have a big one. But mechanically, I think Trevor Lawrence is super clean and has been since I saw him when he was 15 years old. I mean, it is pretty to watch. And so I think as he moves into this stage of his career, I think it's kind of like, okay, let's play on time. Let's get the ball out when it needs to and take advantage of some of the accuracy things that he's always had. But now he's going to be a little bit more comfortable and confident with it. And so, when I tell guys to watch, a lot of times I'm saying you almost have to learn what not to do, just as much as you're trying to watch what to do. And you got to be really realistic and self-assess there. Like, you can't do what Mahomes did, so don't try that, and we do have fun with it though, because it is so special and unique to have him in our city and doing what he does at such a high level that, like, yeah, we can, like, we take a couple minutes. We don't spend a lot of time on it always, but we kind of joke about kind of our Mahomes minute that will kind of let the guys freelance a little bit to feel some things and to see one, probably as much as anything, it makes you appreciate how good he is at it because of how difficult it is. But a lot of times it's just, I think quarterback training as an athlete, I think we put up these guardrails so much that there's moments in time in the off season that you need to let those down and let them experiment and play around with some things to get a better feel for what they're capable of. And so we try not to, generate robots. I mean, we have some certain things that we believe in, but I mean, if you look at the guys we've talked about, like, there's probably some similarities, but they don't all look the same. They don't come out of a factory. And so we try to keep that athleticism and that piece that they have as an individual there, and then give them some things fundamentally and, that they can stick to and that can help them through some of the tough times, or when they start to get in a little bit of a slump, they can snap out of it because they've got such solid foundation built.
Final one for me then, Coach. And again, this kind of should be directed more at maybe some younger guys that are out there that are trying to kind of, they've decided they're going to be a quarterback, right? That this is going to be their position. What do you feel like is the one thing that you would tell? What's the one building block? I feel like there's, for young quarterbacks, it's always about, like, I need to build my arm strength, right? So I can throw the ball deeper. And I'm curious, from your point of view, what would you encourage to be kind of the one building block, that piece of the foundation that can not only help those kind of guys that are starting in the position get off on the right foot, but also the thing that they can always come back to and as a real strong suit of their game?
I think accuracy is a big thing. I would take accuracy over arm strength any day of the week. And arm strength is going to come as your body develops, probably more natural. Like we can't force that one. It's like the Brady Bunch hanging from the pull-up bar. It's like, it's not going to make you taller, but accuracy you can work on. To me, and we've said this with Elite 11 for a long time, and I truly believe it, that the fastest way the hardest way to reach your potential or reach your ceiling is to have flawed mechanics. And so in order to get where you want to go, I think you got to be really clean and really understand the proper way to throw it. And that's going to allow you to be more accurate. And eventually it's going to allow you to create more power. If I always use the example of somebody like Drew Brees, and I probably should have said him, even though he's retired, go watch him throw it, because he's probably realistically, he's probably like the same size as all the guys that want to be a quarterback. The giants out there are there and they're coming, but realistically we're all 5'11", 6 foot, and that's Drew. And Drew played with a super wide base and, really clean stroke, especially as he got to New Orleans. I think that's the type of Kirk Cousins would be another one that would stick out of like, those guys were and are obsessed with completions. And so they find it and they're accurate with it. And then the arm strength stuff, I think, just comes with the natural maturation of a young athlete.
That's a good segue into the end of this. Parents or prospective quarterbacks should visit spinitqb.com. Is that?
Yep, you can find us there. And, I said earlier, the biggest thing for me is that we're trying to help, hopefully as many quarterbacks as we possibly can. And it's not about the next Drew Lock or the next Skylar Thompson or Avery Johnson. We want to improve their Friday night experience, right? And so we want to help as many guys as we can. And we're going to throw a bunch of touchdowns along the way, but we're also going to help them through some tough stuff and learn how to handle some adversity and do that. And so we like having that opportunity to kind of connect with kids and be a part of their journey. But yeah, you can find us on our website and get some more information about us. And especially headed, into the season, most of what guys are going to be looking for is that next off season and being able to chase their competition. And we're happy to help.
Well, Coach, thanks so much again for taking the time to talk to us. And thanks so much to all those of you watching and listening to the Verbal Commitment Podcast on KCSN. If you like what you've seen or heard, leave us a like, subscribe, or hit us with a 5-star rating. And until next time, take care.